Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, I'm Johnny Mac, and I am high on life as I record this part of the podcast. I just hung up with Larry the Cable Guy, who is today's guest. He is awesome. He is doing a Larry's Nebraska road trip. You'll hear Larry explain it. He's playing smaller venues, including Wahoo High School, Central City High School, and some other small theaters. This might have been the fastest half hour of my life. Like, I looked up and we were just talking. Hopefully it comes true here that I actually know the guy and we're friends. And suddenly it was 23 minutes in and I'm like, holy cow, I didn't even ask him about the tour yet. So you'll hear me back-to-back 2 questions because I could have talked to him for 2 more hours. It would have been amazing. Along the way here, especially note, I've talked about this in the past, and I talk about it during the interview, the Dan/Larry, and this is really an interview with Dan Whitney, if you pay a lot of attention, especially vocally. He turns on the Larry voice a little bit, but he explains how the character has evolved. Anyway, let's get right to it. Here's Larry the Cable Guy. That's a nice setup you got there.
Yeah, you know what? I when I was doing all my Disney stuff, all my Pixar stuff,
oh, that makes sense.
They said for the third one and a bunch of the toys and stuff, you don't have to come out here, but you can do it at the place in Omaha. And I said, oh, that's awesome. I said, well, how about this? Can I put a studio in my barn and do it from the studio? Yeah, if you got the equipment, we'll do it from there. I said, okay. So I had my buddy design me a studio and tell me what I need, and they came in and put this in. It's pretty nice.
That's nice, and that's nice work if you can get it, right?
I know, absolutely. It's funny. Then I put it in, and then we ended up doing all that car stuff. And once those projects were done, it just kind of sits here till I do my live show on Sirius once a Wednesday a week.
How are you enjoying doing the live radio show?
You know what, John? I like doing it. I mean, it's fun. I do it. You know, they told me that I didn't have to do it anymore if I didn't want to. But you know, we had to do 20 hours of live programming between Jeff and I. And Jeff does an interview show once a week or once every 2 weeks, whatever his 20 hours is. And I was just going to do this to round out to 20, but I like it. I had a good time, you know, and I got 4 other people on there with me that work at Moral. You know Moral.
Of course.
So Moral's there. And so I love it. We have a good time. So I do every Wednesday when I'm home for 2 hours, and I love it. So we've been doing it a long time. I just want to keep it going. I mean,
it's a great way to connect with the fans.
It's a great way to connect with the fans. You know, I got I got a record label, and I try to help promote some of these guys and gals that are on my record label. So it's a good way to plug them and get them played, and so I enjoy doing that.
Do you try out lines on the radio show?
I do all the time. I try out jokes, and I use it as my own personal. Hey, what do you think of this one? I wrote this yesterday, you know, and I'll do a bunch of stuff like that. I think, you know, here's the thing. I mean, Larry the Cable Guy, of course, is the name in the draw, but I don't do my show as Larry the Cable Guy. I mean, I talk like this. This is me. I got a little accent, you know, but I don't, sometimes I wish, you know, when I was doing Cars, I wanted to use my real name, but, you know, my manager at the time, who I'm not mentioning live ever again, my manager at the time said, no, you have to play it as, you know, Larry the Cable Guy is who's doing the voice, because it's a brand. You're selling a brand. And you got merchandise. I says, okay. I mean, I don't know much about that stuff. So Mater from Cars was performed by another character, the Cable Guy, performed by Dan Whitney, which really didn't make much sense. So I kind of got, it'd be cool to do a radio show, Dan Whitney, and, you know, people know that I'm the voice of Larry the Cable Guy and Mater. But now it is what it is. Everybody calls me Larry the Cable Guy, whether I talk with my character accent or regular. So even on social media, I just have one, Larry the Cable Guy, voice of Mater, voice of, so it is what it is.
It's funny, since we're peeling back the curtain, I've shared with people who listen to my dopey podcast, I would sometimes be blessed to be backstage and, could tell when I was talking to Dan and could tell when I was talking to Larry, depending on the situation and how much you ramped up the accent. Is there a scenario where Dan might ever perform stand-up comedy, maybe some things that don't fit the Larry persona?
Boy, I would love to, because the act that I did before Larry the Cable Guy, that's how Larry the Cable Guy became to do what he does. Because Larry the Cable Guy, when I did Larry the Cable Guy, I wanted to create a likable Archie Bunker. Because I thought Archie was funny, but he was a douchebag to his wife, and you know what I mean? To people. Yeah. But he was funny. You got to admit, the guy was hilarious. So I wanted to create a character that wasn't a douchebag and had good points. Obviously conservative. I'm a conservative guy. It's a conservative guy that doesn't quite know how to say things in a correct way. You understand what he's trying to say, but he goes about it entirely the wrong way. And so that's what I created. But Larry the Cable Guy originally was a political guy. Every time I was on the radio, I would do a social commentary on what was happening. So when I first went on stage and people started yelling, "Get her done, we want to hear Larry," I didn't have a comedy show geared towards Larry the Cable Guy. My comedy show was upbeat, fast-paced, a lot of goofy jokes, a lot of dumb actions, physicality. That's what I had. So when I first did it, I said, well, I'm just going to take the next 10 minutes of material that I got, and I'm going to do it with an accent and do it how Larry would do it. And so, that's what I did. And it killed. And so I incorporated how I used to do my show into Larry, and that's what came about. Now, could I go back and be myself and do these jokes? Yeah, it would be hilarious. But I think now it would just kind of throw people off and be kind of weird because it's, well, wait a minute, Larry's not Larry the Kid. You know what I mean? So I think I just leave it as it is. It's not, people like it. It's funny. I'm not too, at this point, John, to be honest with you, I'm not too worried about it. I used to be worried about separating the two and making sure that people knew that, but you know what? If it makes people laugh, I'm all about it. I love it. I still love it. So I love doing it. When Jeff and I get together, we don't stop talking like that. Hey, did you go up that deal yesterday with the potato salad? Yeah, we was up there all spoiled and got sired, and Amanda had to go to the doctor. We talk. It's funny.
Well, I remember hanging out backstage in Nashville with you guys one time, and I really enjoyed, you guys were just riffing jokes, and Jeff had one that just doesn't work for capital J, capital F, Jeff Foxworthy, and pass it over to you, and you sent one back in the other direction. It was just a pleasure to watch that.
Yeah. He would always come up with something that I thought was so stinking funny, but he'd like, oh man, I can never do that. It doesn't fit, but you can have that. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'd go, hey, I got one I could never get to work. Maybe you could get this to work. So yeah, we would swap jokes all the time. Unfortunately, the jokes I would swap him were a little too heady for my material. I remember one time we swapped the joke. I couldn't get that joke to work about my buddy thinks he's visited by aliens because he went outside in his lawn. He had 3 little crop circles, and he was like, what the heck? Aliens came. Turns out somebody just stole his garbage cans. Now, I always thought that was funny, but I could never get it to work, and it confused me. So I traded it with Jeff, who traded me The joke called poop lasagna.
Oh, no way.
So poop lasagna cost me the trash can bit with the aliens, but the poop lasagna is disgusting, but you got to laugh at it because it's so stinking funny.
I was thinking back, I've known you for 20-something years now. It feels like yesterday. I could tell you, I remember where I was standing in the hallway of Sirius on the outer side, on the right side there in the back, and Maggie was there with Jeff, and she said, hey, you want to talk to this other guy, Larry the Cable Guy? And we were like, yeah,
Maggie,
sure, whatever.
Yeah, Maggie's my manager now.
It was 5 minutes before you like super popped, and then you just exploded there. Like it happened really quickly, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, it really did. But I had worked hard on it. I mean, when you get into something like comedy, anything that's in the entertainment field or the athletic field, well, really anything, you have to love it. You have to love it. If you just kind of like it or you just kind of love it, it's going to be a hard road but if you love it, if you love something, man, you want to do it all the time. You live it, you breathe it, you watch it. And I loved it, man. I loved making people laugh. And so when I started doing the Larry the Cable Guy character, I busted ass at it. I made sure that I got radio stations and morning shows that wanted to put it on, and I wouldn't ask for any payment. My payment was just promote me when I come to the comedy club in the area. And I worked hard on it. I did radio calls every day, 5 days a week for 13 years with that Larry the Cable Guy. And man, it just worked. I started selling out comedy clubs but so I say that, John, because when I got on the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, this is what helped me out. All those years of plugging away and doing those morning shows. Well, when I got called first to audition for the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, I think the first one was in like South Carolina, Greenville, maybe. It was a place where I was on a morning show already and had been doing Larry the Cable Guy for 2 years. And so I sold a ton of tickets. It was a huge crowd, and I knew me being on the bill had sold a ton of tickets, because every time I went there, I would do 3 shows. I would do a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I would do 5 shows. So I'd do 2 on a Saturday, 2 on a Friday. Sometimes I'd just go over the weekend and do 4 shows, but they were packed. So, that's at least 4, 8, 12, 6, that's at least 1,600 people. 2,000 people that saw me for, 3 times at least before I got on there. So I was ready for it. So when I went on stage, the crowd went crazy and I had a great set. So the foundation was laid a long time before. But definitely Jeff, who's like my adopted older brother, he saw what I was doing and he knew it would work with Blue Collar. And Ron, man, he's so funny. And Bill, there was just such a good, tight thing they had going. So when I joined it, I already had a nice foundation laid. I didn't really have to introduce myself to a lot of the markets because I was already on them. And you're right. From that point on, it was like a Tesla rocket, and somebody pulled the lever and it just exploded up in the air.
Oh, man, I love him so much. We'll be right back with more from Larry the Cable Guy. And I feel the material has aged really well. I was just doing a mental check in my own recollection. I don't feel like there's jokes from 20 years ago and we're going to cancel Larry the Cable Guy because of something that worked in 2005 that doesn't work now. I feel like it was always just like jokes, having a good time, smile on your face.
Absolutely. All my stuff is it's just nonsense. Being married and had kids has changed a lot of my act. because, now I can't make up stuff, I mean, I can. I make up things, obviously, but before I was married, I could make up 2 ex-wives. I could make up, I could do all that kind of stuff. I could be going to titty clubs and I could, you know what I mean? I would make up all these things that, Larry was doing. But now Larry, now the character, obviously I have kids. I have to work them into my act because there's so much material. So now I actually have actual jokes about an actual family, but the jokes are all made up and stupid, but that's partially factual. Yes, I have 2 kids. The other parts aren't, but, it's just all goofy stuff. It's not like I don't try not to look. If you're offended at something I do, you're going to, obviously people that come to a comedy show are going to get offended at something. But the way I see it right now is I've been around a long time. People that are fans of Larry the Cable Guy, God bless them, they know what they're going to get. They know the kind of material I do. They know it's set up punch, stupid gestures. They know what they're going to get. So nothing really surprises anybody. It's not like I'm up there dropping F-bombs and taking the Lord's name in vain. And, I don't do all my stuff is so completely goofy and I love telling it. And like I got a joke now about, where I'm in Vegas and Henry Winkler came up to me in Las Vegas, one of my first times ever in Las Vegas off the Blue Collar tour. And he wanted to borrow $500. And I'm like, what the heck, Henry? He goes, no, Larry, listen, I need, give me $500 and I swear to you, meet me here in about 5 hours and I'm going to give you $2,000. I just can you do me that favor? I'm like, yeah, man. Tag him right, Henry Winkler. I haven't seen Henry Winkler since then for 14 years. And it turns out that I got caught up in a Fonzie scheme. I mean, it's the dumbest joke.
But you have the physicality. It reminds me of Bob Hope. That's where you would take a pause and kind of mug for the audience and ask them non-verbally, did you guys get that one? Did you like that one? It's so much fun.
That's why I loved all them old guys and all the stuff they used to do. And Carson, it's after the joke that's funny. Like after that joke, normally I would do something like, looks like I got caught up in one of those Fonzie schemes. Crowd laugh, and then I'll go, how have I not won a Grammy? Just stuff like that, One time I was doing a celebrity golf tournament, and I was doing some jokes. Oh, man, what's his name? Famous hockey player. I'm having a brain fart. Doggone it. But anyway, he was there, and I said a joke, and it got kind of a so-so laugh. And I said, hey, keep this up, folks. I'll bring him up, talk about hockey for an hour. That, in my opinion, when you're doing jokes like this, it's not the joke per se. All these jokes are all about timing and all about the save. That's what these jokes are. Now, 80% of them are set up, boom, and a big laugh. The other 20% are a funny, like, oh no, one of those like, but the punch is the save and it's planned. It's not like I didn't, they're all planned. I have a ton of saves that are planned for individual jokes.
I'm already watching the clock here, so I'm gonna compound a question because I have a couple big topics that I could see I'm not going to get enough time already. So combining the two.
That was planned so that you didn't have to ask big questions.
You seem to have figured out life, that it's not only about the money, that's also about family. You clearly could do 270 theaters if you wanted to. You have chosen not to the last few years. And now you're doing this Larry's Nebraska road trip. You're playing high schools, which is also a choice. So let me fold that into one big question. And can you just explain to us like what you're all about now?
Well, look, I I grew up in Nebraska, and I love Nebraska. I grew up in a small town, and Nebraska has the most small towns of any state in the United States, under 1,000. And all the time that I lived here, I resided in the southeast corner, and I never really went anywhere. We'd maybe every now and then go to Omaha, sometimes go to Lincoln. And I've performed in Omaha, Lincoln, and at the fair in Grand Island, but I've never been anywhere else. I think I went to Hastings one time for a golf tournament. I went out west and played golf, but I got a brand new album coming out, a brand new special coming out. And instead of just going to a comedy club and people coming to me and me working out material, I thought it would be cool to travel around the state, meet people in other parts of the state that grew up just like I did, and let them all be a part of this process of coming up with a new act and jokes and do my show for people that have supported me over all of these years, but yet never get to see me. And I never get to be out there. So I just thought it would be a fun, unique way to do that. And that's why I do that. And I can, not to proselytize John to people, but and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me going from an arena to a high school. It doesn't bother me not doing 270 shows a year to only doing 24 shows a year, because comedy's my job. It's not my identity. It's my job. And it's not my identity. I'm a Christian. I'm a Jesus follower, and that's my identity. One day I'll be gone. One day I'll be gone, and everything that I did, it's just like every other entertainer. Oh, wow, remember? Yeah. And then 20 years from then, you're forgotten. You're gone. So what? So you got a plaque on the wall. Big deal. So I think about other things. I think about after I'm gone. I think about those things. And so that's not my identity. I'm not sitting at home depressed because I'm not working arenas anymore. I don't look at the TV and go, man, I remember when I was doing what Nate Bargatze's doing now, and being all, man, I used to do. I don't do that at all. I am completely content and completely happy with everything that I ever got to do in my life. And now that I have kids and they have careers that they want to start doing, it's all about being a dad and making sure my kids are taken care of and following what they want to do and helping them out with their dreams. And so, yeah, I don't get caught up in any of that stuff, because if you put your entire identity into what you do for a living, once that starts to fade, once that starts to go, then you got really nothing. I wouldn't say you got nothing, but all that's gone now. You're not selling any more tickets. And I'm still selling out shows, but you have to think about the future, and you have to think about later on in life. And that's what I've done. And so my identity isn't in material things, because if it was, I would be super, super depressed. So you can't do that. You can't live your life for material things. Now, I love what I do. If you do something, you got to love it because you want to be successful in it, but don't put your identity in it. That's me. That's me talking and what I've done, I don't want to be one of those comedians or one of those entertainers that's in a hotel room at 75 years old and, hasn't really, that's it. You're in a hotel room and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, just top of my, I'm sure Saget didn't want to pass away in a hotel room. You try and avoid that. I got to keep you on schedule. I'm honorable with Maggie, and I got my half hour here. I appreciate you. You have been a friend for 2 decades. You continue to be a friend. And in this industry where, hey, it's a dude in a podcast, but you could easily say no and you say yes. So I appreciate you. You're awesome.
Wow, Johnny, thank you so much, man. You and I, man, I tell you what, you're a big part. I mean, you were always there. You're a big part of every time I come up to Sirius, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. You know, we'd walk in there and there'd be me, Bill, Jeff, and Ron, our picture on the Sirius billboard underneath Howard Stern, and John, and you were always so nice to us and made us feel at home, and I always loved coming up there and saying hi to you, doing and stuff. So I'm glad you had me on your podcast, man. I appreciate it.
No, thanks. A quick story on the sign. So Jim Brewer comes up one day. He goes, "Am I crazy, or I came up here and my picture wasn't on the wall?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, we rotate the pictures depending on who's coming up. We don't have Howard Stern and Jim Brewer." And I made you laugh. I'm getting out on that. Goodbye.
Hey, John, hey, can I listen before you go? Can I tell you a quick story? I mean, Jim Brewer knows this story, and I'll be late for this other interview for just a couple minutes. Is this okay? So, when I was open micing, some of the best years of my life were open micing and hanging out with comedians and writing jokes, but the West Palm Beach crew, which I was a part of, we would go up every now and then do Bonkers in Orlando. So we'd always go out to eat to Denny's, and we'd get a booth, and all of us comedians, now listen, all of us had other jobs. We weren't professional comedians. The only person in that booth that was a professional comedian was Tom Rhodes. He was the only professional comedian there. And we would linger on every word Tom Rhodes said because he was funny and he had a TV show that had just, you know what I mean? So
yep.
In that booth trying to be comedians that night, me, Scott Thompson, Carrot Top, Jim Brewer, Daryl Hammond, Billy Gardell, Tom Rhodes, me, obviously, my buddy Chris Baker, who became this talk show host, who's like listed as top 100 talk show hosts, and my buddy Tom Ryan, who's from where we're from, lives in New York now, and is a really great writer, comedian. So that was who was in that booth that day. It was unbelievable. And we talk about it to this day, how crazy it was that all of us were together in that booth all those years ago, not knowing what was going to happen in the future.
That's some lineup.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, that's a great comedy lineup. All right, John.
All right, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm going to let you go.
All right. Hey, man, keep in touch. I love seeing you, man. Keep in touch.
As I said at the top, that was the fastest half hour of my life. I have a long-standing friendship with Maggie, who was mentioned in the interview. And over the years, I have prided myself. If I ask Maggie for half an hour, I keep my schedule to half an hour. A lot of these radio interviews run over, but I try to keep my word. But Maggie, if you're listening, Larry told one more story. That's why we went 31 minutes. I apologize. Larry's great. Maggie's great. I've known them both for 20 plus years. And that is your comedy news for today. I hope you enjoyed that one. I really, really love him. He's just an awesome person. See you tomorrow.